Hi there, Michael. Economic Caper here. Welcome to business for today, year 13. What I thought I'd do is spend a little bit of time just going through the internal once again, and specifically show you an example and point out some key things that I would expect to see in the example from your reports. So obviously you've got this. If you haven't got this, remember, it's always up on Moodle. The deadline we're looking at is still the same. It's going to be the 28th of April. Even though we might still be in lockdown, that's what I still expect it to come in. If there's any change, I will let you know on Teams. So please be aware of that. Okay, so looking today, guys, our task. All right, so from our task, we can see that the 5 things we've got to do is find a contemporary issue, whatever that might be, identify 2 suitable organisations that are being affected by that issue. That's important to be able to find those organisations that have a clear that are affected in some way by that issue. A question was asked of me yesterday that do the organisations have to be in the same industry? No, not at all. In fact, if they're in different industries, that shows the bigger effect of the issue. So that's probably not a bad one to look at. Explain what each organisation is. So basically, give me what they're all about, and how the issue applies to the organisation. Okay, the next bit's here from 3, 4, 5. What we tend to see, the wording, analyze and evaluate. These tends to imply more of looking. This is where you're going to get your merit, and this is where you're going to get your excellence from. All right. So analyze the effects of the issue for each organisation. So when we're analysing, we're looking a lot deeper. You might look at pros and cons. You might look at long-term, short-term. You might look at effects on their objectives and how it stops them, or maybe even helps them gaining their objectives. All right, and then as ever, analysing these 2 things, and then our evaluate. Now this is the big bit, because this really is what gives you the evidence for our excellence. Right? Evaluate, make a judgment based on your research and analysis how the organisation should manage the issue. In another word, that is, what solutions do you propose? That's a big ask. That's a big ask for you guys, because that is one thing that these organisations probably can't work out, which is why the issues are. But come up with some sort of suggestion which is going to be suitable for this organisation to not necessarily solve it, but manage it. All right, manage it in the short term, manage it in the long term, but some sort of approach, rather than just sitting there going, "Oh, this HR issue is causing us lots of aggro." Right? Come up with some proactive comment or proactive statement to say how they might organise it. Okay. So just to flip it over to an example. Okay, this is an example from a couple of years ago that scored quite highly, and I'll talk you through some of these things. In fact, let me make it a little bit bigger and I'll point out some key things. So as we know, the first bit says explain your contemporary issue. So workplace bullying, so straight away we can see workplace bullying is the bit that this person is looking at. Okay, good fact there, had the world's 2nd highest rate of workplace bullying. That is not a particularly good statistic to read. And then a nice definition. I like that. Yeah, that is a really good thing to put. So they've obviously taken that definition for. And please also note the way that this person has done referencing. This is a really, really good way of doing it. And if we look just at the bottom of each page, they've been very, very thorough in these things. Now we can see it's all from one source, but that's fine. Okay. Anyway, and we see that throughout the whole thing. So, is the repeated unreasonable behaviour, the bully also can be employed in a position of power over the victim. Okay, actions can include etc. Right, so they've taken that well. They've taken that from a good source. This may cause some pretty in my two organisations, so they're starting to highlight these organisations. Now, I do remember teaching this class and this year group, and this was one thing that was in the news at that time. So this is quite a contemporary issue, a little bit like what we've got going on today. Okay, this may cause some pretty big problems in most organisations, as they have pretty strict hierarchy and a culture of doing what they're told. Okay, that is a nice identification of the type of organisations that they are. Okay, I think really that could be expanded upon, right, to get some really strong evidence on to explain why they have a strict hierarchy, why there's a culture of doing what you're told. Okay, what is it about these organisations? The fact that they deal with urgency, the fact that they have very clear chains of command, okay, very clear spans of control. All of these things could be very significant to take this up a little bit more. Anyway, let's continue. That being said, nice sort of counterpoint. I like that. And we're not really getting into any analysis yet, but that is a nice sort of counterpoint. That being said, employers are reliant to create a safe work environment. That's a legal requirement. Providing a safe workplace is an implied obligation for employee agreements. Okay, failing to manage bullying may raise a personal grievance. The Employment Relations Act, brilliant. There you go. That is a really nice bit of law that comes in there, outlines penalties. Okay, if the New Zealand Police or the FENZ departments to maintain healthy employment relationships, they could face many ongoing problems, including high staff turnover rate, loss of productivity, and many more. I don't like that. However, because it can be explainable. But the point being is what it can lead to. So that is a good thing to say. What HR issue can lead to. Okay. Repeat verbal or emotional text employee may breach the duty of good faith. Okay, in a workplace police if it was not maintained that the organisation did handle the situation well, they may bring up case with the Employment Relations Authority. Again, very much a sort of legal thing, legal framework. Lead to large costs for the organisation and a major loss of reputation. Okay, which is a vital piece to New Zealand, as they help to work for the people of New Zealand. Loss of reputation, that is a good indication as to why that's significant. That could be explained more. Okay, but still that's fine. Therefore, if there is bullying or maybe bullying in the workplace, the person connected to the business or undertaking in the workplace has an obligation to manage it. Okay, creation of safe workplace culture where everyone is respected no matter what or who they are, including policies to help guide this new environment to be made. Reducing their liability in workplace bullying situations. That is a good point. So to be aware of this, to manage this, reduces their liability. That's a good point. Okay. And once again, please notice these are nice references. Okay, so in terms of the first bit, explaining the contemporary issue, I think they've done that well. There's areas they could go into a little bit more detail, but generally speaking, they've explained it relatively well, and what it can lead to, and the issues that it may lead to. Okay. So just continuing on with this one. Two organisations they've identified: the New Zealand Police and Foreign Emergency New Zealand. She's mentioned this just before a little bit, so maybe not so well structured, but pretty much explaining what they're all about. Skim reading this one. That's nice. to the public, responsibilities is key for the whole workforce. Okay. I think what they could possibly also mention in this is they sort of alluded to it, the roles and responsibility of these two organisations as fundamental institutions in society. So they need to be seen as role modelling that perfect type of relationship between people, particularly the police force. Um, yeah, this is what it is, the police force. Um, okay, recently, and now this is the specific cases that has been come out. So that's well described, and I guess she goes on to talk about their foreign emergency. Nice use of putake in there. Okay. Unacceptable levels of racism. Okay. Again, this is good examples of things that have been happening, and as we can see, some nice quotes down here as well. Okay. Okay, so I'll just stop a break there because I've gone on for about 11 minutes here. But as we can see, just the structure of the first bit, I would say that is really well structured. There's got some wonderful referencing in there. Clearly, well explained contemporary issue, identification of the two organisations and how it's applied. Now, I'll just make a stop there and I'll do another video for the other bits. But really, this bit here, definitely on track for getting our highest marks. It's laid a really good foundation, but as I mentioned right at the very beginning, these bits here, if it was just left here, okay, it would just be pretty much an achieved, all right, because they've just explained and identified the two organisations. The next bit we've got to look at is the analysis, all right. So I'm just going to put a stop there, and please look at the second video for the analysis and the evaluation.